The first duty of government is to protect our rights.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government in what we were tasked to do.
Obviously, we over budgeted last year. I hate to say that I was right, but I was right.
And I think that that's what we need to look at more, is trying to get back to what we used to be, where our churches and our families took care of each other instead of relying on the state.
And we have no way to maintain control over the spending of this program, and it will be a disaster for this state long term.
But we have a whole gamut of kids whose parents would like to do something for them and they cannot.
I take our constitutional rights, the constitutional rights of my constituents, very seriously.
This is simply about putting it out of reach of young, innocent, vulnerable children and making our libraries and schools a safe place for them to go.
And I am increasingly frustrated that we cannot stop ourselves from drinking at the public trough.
He's sounding the alarm. He's saying if we don't address these issues, we potentially might have greater problems moving forward.
Mr. Speaker, no matter how you look at it, no matter how you boil this down, there is never any time that a parent's right to govern what their children see and what they're exposed to should ever be bypassed.
If I was looking at a business and I was looking at these figures, there would be heads rolling because this is unsustainable.
We're supposed to be bottom-up government. We're supposed to be representing my citizens' ideas and your citizens' ideas, and we're supposed to be discussing them and debating them to come to a conclusion.
We need to start making Idaho first. We need to start making America first.
We need to be protecting our First Amendment rights, not inventing ways to slowly chip away at them.
The First Amendment and our freedom of religion, freedom of speech are our first liberties. They are so important. We don't have the rest without them.
Well, good morning, everybody. Idaho Signal's on the air. My name is Matt Edwards. Welcome. It is 10:33 up north, 11:30 in the south, and we are getting ready to roll here. We've got a few guests. We got a packed show for you today, and we want to highlight a bunch of important stories today, especially right up at the top here. But before we do, this morning, Senator Brian Lenny posted this on X. And if you recall, yesterday we covered that he presented a bill that would make sure that you should be showing ID when you go to vote, and this would get rid of the affidavit process. And he said, he highlighted a story out of the Idaho Statesman that said Idaho lawmaker wants to remove option for registered voters. Critics call it suppression. So the Idaho Statesman thinks it's suppressing your vote. To require you to show your ID, something that is the law here in Idaho. But as Senator Lenny had pointed out and experienced himself, you can just walk in, say you forgot your ID, sign an affidavit, and then get an actual ballot that gets mixed in with everybody else's ballot, a real ballot, right? So he brought that in yesterday. We thought it was a great bill. It closes the loophole, but of course the bloggers over at Idaho Statesman, they just cannot get on board. They hate you. They are part of this mainstream press that just hates you. They hate the Republic. It's unbelievable. So we fully support Senator Lenny's bill. Folks, there is a big story brewing out of Pocatello where David Worley lives. And if you recall, if you follow politics at all, you know that in 2022, David Worley ran for state senator for District 29. He also previously had run for mayor of Pocatello. And so he's a very engaged in his community out there. He's also a multi-decade, 22 years with the National Guard and currently with the Idaho National the Idaho Army National Guard. He has a case against Governor Little as commander-in-chief of the National Guard and a couple of other generals in the Idaho National Guard because he has been put on paid leave for the better part of a year and a half now, simply for what appears to be simply for being a Christian guy who's standing up for common sense values. David Worley, under this case that's going on right now, he's not doing any press yet, and so we'll talk to him in due time. But he does have a bunch of great legal team out of with Liberty Counsel, which is a group, a nationwide legal group. We'll get into what they do and understand more about them. But with us today is Associate Vice President of Legal Affairs, Daniel Schmidt of Liberty Counsel. He joins me now, but he's one of David's lawyers here, and I wanted to have you on, Daniel, to kind of walk everybody through out there, kind of a little bit of the background of this case and why you think. I mean, the way I look at it, this is an open and shut case of pure religious discrimination against David. But I'll let you make the case for us.
Well, I agree with you. It should be an open and shut case. Things get a little bit more complicated when you're talking the military establishment. We saw that years ago with the COVID vaccine cases as well. But I think you're right. It is an open and shut case. The Major, Worley, had posted some things on his private social media accounts when he was running, as you mentioned, for mayor of Pocatello and for state senate. And his comments there were comments that were relayed at your intro there, dealing with sanity in our education system and the insanity of the drag queen story hours and the moral rot that is happening in the culture. And he opined on that from his religious perspective. It was before his time as a commander of the recruiting and retention battalion. And there was an individual in his command when he had assumed it who didn't like those posts. He found them, he went and searched for them, and then filed a complaint against Major Worley on the basis of those posts. Now, the First Amendment entitles Major Worley to say as he believes and to speak in terms of the issues of the day, and enlistment in the military or the National Guard doesn't deprive him of that. So it should have been an open and shut case. The Idaho National Guard didn't see it that way. They removed him from command instantly and then investigated him for a full 18 months. And are now threatening to kick him out solely on the exercise of his religious beliefs and speech.
Daniel, we were looking at the complaint, and there's a lot of the evidence in there. There's a whole section where you can actually read and what was the rank of the person that complained, just so I can refer to him as something.
I called him the complaining guardsman. Off the top of my head, I don't remember what his rank was. He was a subordinate officer in the retention battalion.
Yeah. Okay. So
they call him that in ISO, I think is what they call him.
Okay. Yeah. So the complaining guardsman, when I was reading some of his statements here, his initial statement that was taken down, it seemed as though it wasn't that he was harassed directly by Major Worley. It was that he simply existed and quite possibly even maybe perhaps ignored him. The next couple of pages here, there's a section here where it says when Worley got this assignment, he didn't drive the extra 45 minutes down to where this person was stationed to talk to them. He basically stayed in his own town. This scene, I would have expected there to be some this is the Army, right? This is the National Guard, the military, somebody who's like hitting somebody for no reason or doing, red drills or whatever they call it in the movies, something really outrageous. But this seems to just be somebody who's minding his own business and basically ignoring this complainant. I mean, I don't understand what the harassment is here.
Well, there wasn't any, and that's why the investigating officers found that all of the claims against him were unsubstantiated. But you're right, the complaining guardsman raised this notion, and his complaint was that David Worley had created a hostile work environment in the days that he had assumed command. Now, mind you, when the complaint was filed, Major Worley had been in his current position for 6 days. You can't create a hostile work environment in 6 days. And he had met the complaining guardsman a grand total of 1 time. At their first meeting when he assumed the rank in the recruiting retention battalion. They had met, they had their unit meeting. He spoke to him, exchanged pleasantries as he did with others. And then the complaining guardsman went and looked for background on Major Worley. And what he found was the social media posts and the statements he had made during his political campaign. And he didn't like that. He was ideologically opposed to it. And he said, I don't think I'm going to get a fair shake by Major Worley. And I think because he has expressed anti-homosexual views, that I think he's going to create a hostile work environment. Not that he has. You can't do that in 6 days. But he said that he's creating a hostile work environment. So he should be removed from command, and that's what he requested. And at his behest, the Idaho National Guard instituted an investigation, removed Major Worley from command almost immediately, and then has subjected him to 18 months of unconstitutional investigation, treatment, and removal from office. It's unacceptable.
Yeah, I agree. Because I mean, to right now, you're denying him, his ability to serve, and you're denying the rest of the folks that he was going to be working with and helping to recruit. I mean, he's a really good guy. His expertise for our National Guard. Okay, so our program here, we really want to drive action here. So where does this all sit? Because the way I understand it, Governor Little is the commander in chief of the Idaho Army National Guard, and does he have any powers here to say look, this is obnoxious, we're reinstate Worley or do whatever we need to do and just toss this whole thing right out the window? Does he have the ability to do that?
He could do that, and he could do it today. In fact, before we filed this suit, Liberty Counsel sent a letter to the governor and said, look, here's what's going on with Major Worley. This is under your command. This isn't me. This isn't the U.S. Department of Defense. You're in complete control of the Idaho National Guard as the commander-in-chief. And we sent a letter to him saying, look, this is unconstitutional, it's unlawful, and it's unconscionable to treat a man who has dedicated almost 23 years of his nation to this kind of treatment. A man who swore an oath to protect the Constitution is entitled to constitutional protections that he provides you and I. And we told the governor that, and we said, knock this off. It's time to knock it off. It's in your control. And what he says was, I can't do anything about it. So here we are. Okay, fine. Well, we have to file a federal lawsuit seeking a temporary restraining order and injunctive relief against you in your capacity as the governor. You can say it's not in your control all you want to. We'll go to court and prove that it is. And he could do it today. Lawsuit pending. This is completely within his control to say, stop. Put him back where he was, apologize to him for the unconscionable treatment and unconstitutional treatment you have thrust upon him, and put him back where he should have been, and honor his 23 years of service to the country.
Yeah, well said. Okay, well, thanks, Daniel. I appreciate that. We're having a little bit of microphone issue. I don't know if it's on your end or our end, but before I let you go, just can you just let the people know what Liberty Counsel does, how we can support you guys, and where else we can follow your good work on this?
Absolutely. We provide our clients, including Major Worley, pro bono representation across the country on all manner of First Amendment speech and liberty in the family. And so we're sent up lc.org, and what we're doing on Major Worley's behalf there.
Okay, I believe the connection was a little off there, but we have the website here. lc.org is the website, handling First Amendment and religious liberty cases, pro bono. God bless you guys for doing this. This is fantastic. I really appreciate you joining me today, Daniel. I want to check in back with you as things develop and see where this comes, and hopefully we can get David out on camera as well when the timing is right.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us, and we'll be welcome to come back anytime.
All right. Thank you. Very good. All right. Excellent, folks. Wow. That's it. Well, so you heard it here. According to the lawyer, according to the case, and what apparently is the what do you call it? The rank of command or whatever it is. I'm not a military guy, obviously. Governor Little has the authority as commander in chief of the Idaho Army National Guard to say this case is absurd. We are discriminating against David Worley based solely on his religious beliefs, and that is unacceptable. And so, boom, out of the water, blow this thing out of the water, reinstate Major Worley, and let's get this ship back on track here. This is absolutely unacceptable. Yeah, great. Well, we'll have Daniel on again as I promised here, so we can keep track of this stuff. This is insane. I'm gonna mention this throughout the show. Producers, maybe we can get the phone number for Governor Little's office and have that added to the bottom here, and I'll point that out throughout the program. We are going to take a quick break. We'll be back. Thanks for watching, folks. Welcome. It's going to be a good one.
And that's exactly what happened. You want to pull the tape? You can pull the tape because we now got video.
Idaho is the dirt under your fingernails after an honest day's work. Idaho is the hug around your neck when your daughter spells her first word. Idaho is the written word of the law, steadfast and impartial, guarding liberty for all. Idaho is the family rifle passed down, a legacy of protection and the right to stand firm. Idaho is the echo of your own voice, unshaken and free, standing tall among a world silenced. Idaho is the home that's built to weather storms, not empty wallets. Idaho is the quiet trust between a patient and healer, unbroken and sacred. Idaho is the hymn carried by the Spirit, gathering neighbors together in faith and purpose. Idaho is the laughter around a campfire, a family's bond growing stronger with every word. Idaho is the pioneer's will, firm and clear. We govern ourselves, free and unbound. Idaho is what America was. Let's keep it that way. Ask your legislator to sign the Citizens Alliance of Idaho pledge to preserve our shared values. We ride together.
Okay, folks, if you're just joining us, hopefully you can go back and watch the top of the show there. We had Daniel Schmidt from Liberty Counsel on talking about this major David Worley case, clear case of religious persecution, prosecution, investigation. I mean, the guy is like running for office outside of the Army National Guard, has some common sense beliefs and protests against the wokeness going on in his community with these drag queen story hours at the library, drag shows in front of kids, the books in the library, underage transgender surgeries, all of this nonsense. He gets this position. 6 days later, he gets a complaint from a gay National Guardsman saying that he feels hostile. He feels like he's in a hostile work environment. The guy has met the guy once, and says he feels like he's in a hostile work environment, and demands that he be excommunicated out of the National Guard. And they do it. They put him on paid leave for 18 months now. Incredible. And Governor Little, the commander-in-chief, you're the commander-in-chief. You could end this today. He says he can't, okay? But why don't you try, okay? He says he can't. But I'm sure if he issued a letter on his own letterhead and sent it in, that they'd probably listen. Let them say, no, Governor Little, we defy you. You can say you can't do it, but why don't you try? You're already getting sued, right? You're already getting sued, so why don't you try? We're going to put the number down here. I don't know if it's already up, if it's scrolling or not, but the number to call him, 208-334-2100. Reinstate Major David Worley. That's what we're doing right here. Reinstate Major David Worley. Put it up on the Chiron instead of my name. 208-334-2100. You can email him, governor@gov.idaho.gov. A lot of govs. But the phone number, light him up, folks. Light him up. I don't care what time of day you're watching this program, whether it's live or in an archive later on. That's the phone number, 208-334-2100. That's Governor Little's office. Call him and tell him to reinstate Major David Worley into the Idaho Army National Guard and end this persecution for his religious beliefs and standing up for kids. Standing up for our children. Are you kidding me? This is absurd. Absolutely absurd. I didn't think I'd be spending this much time on it, but after listening to him, listening to Daniel, his lawyer on here, and just kind of going through all the details of this case, it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. So we stand with David Worley. I hope you all do too. And call the governor's office there, 208-334-2100. Okay, let's get back into the, there it is, full court press. Full court press, folks. Okay, do we have anybody in the wings? We got Brian Allman. Let's bring Brian Allman. He can help me settle me down here. Brian, good morning, sir. How are you?
Oh, good morning. It's been a crazy morning.
It has.
I was out of commission for a little bit, something unrelated, and come back and there's all of these bills introduced. And obviously you're talking about this issue, which I've been keeping an eye on. I haven't written about it, but I've been keeping an eye on it since last summer when it first came up. Just waiting to see what happens with it. And unfortunately, it looks like it's going to have to go through the litigation route because our governor is not providing leadership on the issue. Yeah. And like I said, I mean, he can sit around and say, I can't do anything, but try. Why don't you try? Right now, we are watching in real time the example of a chief executive who can just do things. And maybe it's not, who knows if it's all the letter of the law or following precedent, but he's just out there doing things on behalf of the people who voted him into office. And
you're talking about Trump.
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
it would be nice to see some of that at the state level. It's you got to ask yourself, what would Governor DeSantis do? Or even
I was just about to ask that. What would Governor DeSantis, a military guy like himself, what would he do in this situation? Yeah, exactly. So come on, Governor Little. Come on, man. You see the way the wind is blowing. This is not a good look, and we're going to keep blowing up this story. Like I said, it's been on our radar. It's been humming around the sort of the sphere of us politicos and stuff. But this is getting out of control because the longer this goes on in litigation, it just goes on and on and on. And Governor Little could end it right now. He could end it right now. So call Governor Little, 208-334-2100. Light him up. Let's see what you guys out there can do. You Signal callers out there. Let's see what you can do. Let's see what this audience can do. Let's see what Allman's audience can do and everybody else that's out there that's been sharing this story. Let's see what it can do. Okay, you alluded to it already. There's been a busy, busy morning. You were up early because you headed to committee to actually, you raised a really good point. This isn't just about chickens in HOAs. This is about this. You could have exposed something even broader today. The big issue with HOAs. And so we have your clip. Let's play Mr. Allman's clip this morning. This was to testify in support of Senator Tammy Nichols' bills to allow chicken ownership across Idaho, wherever you live, no matter if you're in an HOA that says you can't. Let's watch this.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Brian Allman, and I'm here representing myself today. I'm a homeowner in Eagle, and I'd like to have chickens someday, but my HOA disallows them. Now, I, at heart, often feel frustrated with HOAs. We've all heard horror stories of neighborhood Napoleons snitching on each other, but I do recognize that they are the lowest form of government. Neighbors get together and come up with ideas of how their community should be. So I also get that if you want chickens, you should be aware of your HOA rules before moving in. Speaking personally, my family was short on time. And the house fit all our other needs and had a lot of other things going for it. And so I get that and I can live with that. But let me tell you what it takes to change our HOA bylaws. First, we need to get someone on the board to approve the proposed rule. If not, we need signatures from 25% of the members, and that's a very large neighborhood that I live in. Then we would need to hold a meeting with a quorum and get 2/3 to vote to approve it. I don't think our neighborhood has actually met quorum in ages. When we first moved in 2.5 years ago, the board was already circulating a set of amended CCNRs, trying to get enough signatures, notarized signatures, to get over that 2/3 threshold. But because of turnover, people moving in, people moving out, I don't think they're ever actually going to reach it. So all that is to say, I think I have a easier path to having chickens through the legislature than through the HOA. Everyone worries about local control, but I believe there's precedent. The legislature has already said that HOAs can't ban you from putting political signs in your yard during campaign season. Why? Because of free speech. I think this is about the freedom of food. My family can eat 1.5 eggs a day, and with the egg prices being what they are now, that is becoming more and more untenable. By allowing HOAs to regulate roosters, I think that handles the noise complaints. And if your chickens are running wild or getting into things, then they can be handled in the same way that a nuisance dog or cat would under the same rules. So in closing, I ask the committee to send this to the floor with a do pass recommendation. And I thank you for your time.
Very good, Allman. Talk to me a little bit about the HOA situation, because that's what I think you kind of exposed here. Like, I think Senator Nichols said in her closing argument as well, like people moving in, people moving out, you can never establish a quorum. There's builders, when they build these subdivisions, they are actually the HOA until there's enough people to have one. I mean, it seems like it's a big bureaucratic mess, even though it's the lowest form, the smallest community of government.
Yeah, ideally, an HOA is just neighbors getting together and deciding on certain community standards, as I was trying to say there, and paying for things in the common areas like a park or a green space or walls around the neighborhood. We have that here. And that's the ideal. And obviously it can turn into people snitching on each other because their grass is half an inch too long or something. But changing the rules, I've looked into what it would take to put an amendment in to allow chickens, and it's a very cumbersome process. And the fact that they've been trying to change the CCNRs here in my neighborhood for years and are not even there yet, it suggests that it's not easy. And maybe it shouldn't be too easy to change these things. But on the other hand, it shouldn't be too hard either, because that's the whole point of it, that neighbors get together and decide on those things. So if the path through that is not tenable, then we need legislation. And I'm not 100% against HOAs. I have been for most of my life because of their petty rules and the way it can turn into neighbors snitching on each other. But at the same time, people, one of the folks, I think it was Senator Taylor, actually brought up, some people move into neighborhoods because they have an HOA, because they have certain rules, and you're not going to have big RVs clogging up the streets. You're not going to have, the house next to you turning into a dump. At the same time, I think there's a reasonable path here to allow a couple of backyard chickens that are well maintained and aren't a nuisance.
Yeah, I agree. Very, very, very well done. It passed committee there. I think maybe one person didn't want it to pass because he thought it would open the door to mini goats running wild in the HOA. How can you be against mini goats? I mean, come on. Very good. All right. Well, we'll see how far that goes. I'm sure once this bill gets to the House, if it does, boy, there's going to be a lot of clucking from. Boy, the puns. Me and Alana Rubel, we're gonna start clucking about this bill. Okay, let's talk.
This is one of those bills that might cross ideological lines. It might not be exactly party line thing. It's maybe urban versus rural. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, we'll see. We'll certainly see. Okay, let's get to folks. We do have scheduled Representative Jordan Redmond on today as well. He was in committee this morning. I think he presented 4 bills today. He had 2 yesterday. So we'll touch on a few of them. But other than him, Representative Joe Alfieri was also presenting 2 bills today. He had a bill last year that would have restricted the use of absentee ballots, I believe. And so the bill passed the House. It didn't get through the Senate. And so he made a slight change this year to include that you can request an absentee ballot if you are also 65 and older, in addition to being, handicapped or sick or overseas, military or that sort of thing. And then Representative Mickelson had a question about that. And I think we have that clip. Let's watch this exchange.
Mr. Chairman, Representative, I see that we're favoring older people, and I have no problem with that because I'm getting towards that time in my life as well. But I also have lots of young mothers for daughters and daughter-in-laws right now, and they have 4 and 6 kids. And for them, if their husband happens to be out farming or working, right, for them to drag, and in one case, my daughter, I think she might have to go 20 miles, right? I don't see anything in here that addresses the needs of young families, young mothers. And I guess my question would be to you is, are we trying to limit people's participation and their voice by running this?
Representative Alfieri. Mr. Chairman, Representative Mickelson, we're not trying to limit people's participation at all. And in fact, there is no statistical evidence that limiting the use of absentee ballots limits voter turnout. We've got some data on that. I can get into that during the hearing. Follow up?
Oh, just follow up, but I don't see any exceptions here for mothers that might have 6 kids that their husbands might be working, and to drag them all out. I don't see an exception in here for that, and I think that that's every bit as valid as a 65-year-old.
Representative Alfieri. Chairman Crane, Representative Mickelson, I would respectfully disagree with you because I'm sure that mother gets out at some time during the week or the month previous to the election. Once again, I will point out that there is early voting as well.
Yes, there's the boom. There's early voting. Representative Mickelson, man, she loves talking about dragging kids here and dumping kids there. I mean, it's so fascinating to watch her talk. What do you think of this bill? What do you think of the chances of this bill, Brian?
I think we'll see. I'm trying to remember what happened to the similar bill last year, if it got out of committee or if it got off the House floor.
Oh, yeah, it passed the House. It just died in the Senate. Yeah.
So many bills do that, don't they? But yeah, the election integrity is obviously a big deal to a lot of people in Idaho. And anything that improves election integrity is going to be popular, at least I think, with the voters. Obviously, you're going to hear, the Democrats will say it's about disenfranchising people, but that's, they really don't have any power, do they? I was looking at the text here as we were listening to that clip and looking at all the exceptions here. Representative Alfieri said everything with that final line that we have early voting. Most of the reasons for doing absentee voting are solved with early voting. And early voting, as Representative Alfieri said, is different than absentee voting. It's about the chain of custody. I think that was in the other clip that we didn't watch there. He's explaining that the reason why mail-in voting is a problem is because it's a chain of custody issue. You drop your ballot off in a mailbox, and then who knows who has access to it? Postal workers. It goes through the process, gets taken to another place where it then is unloaded, and you really don't know. Whereas early voting is different in that you're actually just going to a physical place. You're casting your ballot. The election workers have it 100% of the time. I don't see why you'd oppose this. But
yeah, I mean, it's you're exactly right. I mean, the fewer hands, the fewer ability for ballots to fall into the wrong hands or to get lost or whatever in the mail or anything like that, the better. And this goes lockstep with what Senator Brian Lenny had yesterday as well when it comes to walking up to any polling place and without an ID and just signing a piece of paper and getting an actual ballot. I was talking to somebody else about this. In other states, some other states allow you to do that, but they have you fill out what's called a provisional ballot, and the provisional ballot is actually like a different color than a normal ballot, and they only count those ballots if there's a close race or if there's something when it comes, if the race is close enough with the normal ballots, then they start putting in the provisional ballots after all the things have been checked, and then those provisional ballots get put into the actual tally. But at least you're separating them out with the folks who showed up with ID and those who don't. And for the Idaho statesmen and critics who say he's trying to oppress voters, it's just so disingenuous, so ridiculous. I can't get over it. The press.
Eventually, programs like this and like my platform can eventually start providing an alternative to this media, because it's really is insane if you think about it, that we are a red state that voted 70% for Donald Trump. We have a legislature that's 85% Republican, and yet the papers of record of all our big cities are incredibly far to the left, and they're always counter signaling anything that our conservative lawmakers do.
Yeah, very true. All right, well, let's shift gears here, because there was an interesting bill that was presented this morning in the Health and Welfare. Representative Chris Bruce, he's out of District 23, the southwest corner, if you will, of Idaho. He presented a bill on labeling blood donations that have mRNA vaccines in them. So let's watch this presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Representative Chris Bruce from District 23, which is South Canyon, South Ada, and all of Oahe. I bring to you RS 32-129. And essentially, if you just read, there's an actual updated statement of purpose in there that was changed later in the day before it was sent to you. You may want to check it out. All this bill does is that when you donate blood, it requires that you disclose if you've had an MNRA vaccination. Some already ask you if you've had the COVID shot, but I think MNRA goes a little bit further with the different technology they're using. And it also asks that it be conspicuously marked. That way, if we have someone who takes blood, they have the ability to ask for blood that maybe hasn't been from a donor of that status. As a leukemia survivor, I took years of blood, and this was something that was important to me. So with that, I ask that you print it.
Representative Redmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for a motion.
Motion's in order.
I move to introduce RS 32129.
Committee, we have a motion to introduce RS 32129.
I think we can cut out of this. There was a question about wanting him to come back with other. Are there other things that we label blood as containing? Like if you show up to donate blood, should you disclose other conditions that you may have? So the bill did get printed, so we'll have a full hearing on this. But I mean, we're in that stage. We're in that stage in our society now. I mean, I remember going to give blood and having to fill out a questionnaire in terms of diseases or alcohol or drugs and other things that may affect my blood. But I don't know at the other stage of that if you can, as a blood recipient, can say, hey, I don't want any blood that has mRNA or something else in it. So very, very fascinating what's going on with our blood supply, and as most people are concerned about it these days.
Yeah, I've I try to give blood regularly, and I fill out the thing on the phone that the rapid pass or whatever they call it, and there's tons of questions. I'm not sure how and one of the questions is about the COVID shot. Have I ever taken it? Now, obviously, they do mark some things on there because they have to know my blood type. They can't give, I'm O positive, so they can't give that to somebody who's O negative. So they have to keep some things, keep track of some things. I don't see that it would be too much of an imposition to say, oh, this person has the mRNA vaccine in their bloodstream, and this recipient doesn't want that. However, enforcement is a big question because, the Red Cross app tells me where my blood goes, and it almost never stays in Idaho. It goes to Nevada, it goes to Puerto Rico, it goes to Texas, wherever they need it.
Wow.
So I'm not sure how.
You can track your own blood?
Yeah, apparently. I take it on their word. I
Yeah, but even having the ability to track where your blood went, that's fascinating. Okay. All right. Anyway, I digress. I apologize.
It does call into question the ability of Idaho, though, to enforce something like that. Maybe it's only because the blood that's donated from Idahoans often goes out of state, and the blood that's given to patients in Idaho most likely comes from out of state as well. So,
why is that? Why do you think that is?
Probably some efficiency of
really
of something.
I don't know. It kind of reminds me of like California growing their own avocados and exporting them, and then importing Mexican avocados. I don't know. we gotta have a mind shift around here. We can take care of. Look, if the HOAs can do what they do, right? When it comes to, I don't know, we're going down a slippery slope here.
To patronize local businesses, buy local. Maybe we should also have give blood locally.
Yeah, give blood locally. Keep it local. Keep it local. Okay, well, we'll pay attention to that bill. And then, of course, there's another bill dealing with sales tax. When I hear about this, I hear about the little kid selling lemonade and being harassed because he didn't have a seller's permit, or he's not paying his taxes when they're out there selling their lemonade. But this is a big deal in Idaho because a lot of folks will sell their own chicken eggs, or they have produce that they grow on their own property and they sell it on a stand. I mean, we've done that 100 times. And apparently you need a seller's permit to do that. And Representative Monks was before the committee this morning with a bill to eliminate that. Let's watch a little bit of that.
This RS here, it attempts to address some of the concerns that people have. Let me back up a little bit maybe and tell you a little bit about my house and my wife. I've got a bunch of fruit trees, and we have a bunch of chickens. And my wife likes to sell her eggs, and actually right now they're in hot demand, let me tell you. People waiting on lists and want those eggs, and it's because she sells them very inexpensive. But and we also have a lot of fruit trees. And during summer when my fruit trees are in, we have more fruit than we know what to do with. And it is, if you want to come pick it yourself, you can have as much as you want. But if you make me pick it, then I'm going to charge you a little bit because my time is worth something. And so we set the fruit out on the front of our long drive there, and we put a box there. You can stick your money in it, and you can take the fruit that you want. I'm required to get a seller's permit to do that, and that's fine. We did, and we pay our couple $100 at the end of the year. But I was starting to think this may not be the best way for Idaho to be spending their time and effort for people who have small fruit stands, egg sales, garage sales, all of those kind of things, and they don't generate a whole lot of money for the state. So we started doing a little research and found that for people who, and this is again just the people who actually file for permits, not the ones that don't and should, that have total sales of less than $5,000. In 2023 was the last year number I had, 10,701 permits. 10,700 permits in a year. And so you do your math really quick and you realize that's a lot every day that people are filing for these permits, and they're not selling a whole lot. Of those 10,700 permits, the state generated a little over $1 million and had a lot of manpower that had to process all those, issue the permits, receive the sales tax, everything else. And so the idea was this is just going to make it a little bit easier on people. If you sell less than $5,000, you don't have to get a permit.
Yeah, there you go.
And that's it.
Brian, what do you think? We're gonna pull in $1 million less that we have to spend into our into the government. What do you think of this?
Well, the less money that goes into the government budget is always a good thing, I think, for fiscal conservatives, because then that's less money that they have to spend. But I think Representative Monk's pointed out that it's where, the savings on the other end is going to be the fact that they don't have to handle all these little tiny permits and sales tax. I can speak to this personally. My wife and I have it's kind of defunct right now, but we've had a gluten-free baking business. We just will occasionally go to a farmer's market or an event, or just if somebody wants something, we'll make it up and charge a few bucks for it. And we pulled in a couple $100 dollars of revenue each year. So we be affected by this bill, but it was a bit of overhead to have to get the seller's permit and get the cottage food permit and then file sales taxes every quarter. Eventually they just stopped sending us stuff because I think we had several straight quarters of no business. So they figured, okay, you must be closed down.
Right.
But it was something that we would have to keep in mind, because if you don't file that, they assume you've made a ton of money in there. You're not just not telling them, and they'll send you a bill for a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, generally people are, this is extra. This is like vacation money. It's extra spending cash. It's getting rid of the stuff that you have on your property and that sort of thing. Interesting to note, though, some of the argument that he made there about cutting back on all the stuff that the state has to do to manage this whole thing. That argument could also be used for this whole grocery tax in and then food credit out. Like maybe we just just end all that and just keep the bureaucracy as clean and simple as possible. I don't know. I'm just speculating here. All right, Brian. Well, if you're not going anywhere, maybe you can stick around a little bit. I know we have Representative Redmond on deck here. So let us take a quick break. We'll get settled in. We'll bring in Redmond back, and then if we have time at the end of near the bottom, we'll bring it back. Brian, how does that sound?
Sure, sounds good.
All right, great. All right, folks, let's take a real short break, and we'll be right back.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government and what we were tasked to do.
31926 addresses benefits currently available to illegal aliens who come to Idaho. This bill leaves in place emergency medical services for people that are here illegally currently through Idaho code. The bill removes non-emergency healthcare benefits and some social benefits. This bill does not prohibit anyone here illegally from accessing emergency medical care, and it does not prevent state actions necessary for the protection of life and public safety. Our state has a finite amount of resources, and I don't believe that we should be using taxpayer funds to be paying for folks that aren't here lawfully. I believe those precious resources need to be prioritized for the most vulnerable citizens in our state. I kindly ask for a motion to introduce RS 31926.
All right, there it was, Representative Jordan Redmond this morning in committee presenting a bill that is going to get him a lot of attention. Representative Redmond joins me now. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, man. How's things back north?
Oh, you know that we got 5 inches of snow last night, but nothing we can't handle.
No, not at all.
Very good. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So we're already kind of seeing across the old hateful media press over there that you're just so mean with wanting to deny illegal aliens these services. Walk us through a little bit about this bill and really what this, because I mean, this is a hot topic right now. You got the federal government, doing the deportations. We saw protests out in Idaho Falls. I think there's going to be some more, and people really not understanding what's at stake here and the things that we can afford in our own state. So yeah, tell us your mindset and how much support you've had behind the scenes on this type of legislation.
Yeah, I mean, I think, to me, it's not that crazy of an idea that we shouldn't be, paying for welfare benefits for people that are here illegally. And, in this bill too, if there's a life issue, there's not, emergency medical treatment, that's not going to be an issue either. We're going to make sure to cover that. However, we don't need to be paying for housing. We don't need to be paying for food. We don't need to be paying for all these other welfare benefits that we currently are paying for. Because again, if you have this much in the pot and this much is being taken away by folks that are here illegally, then that leaves so much for citizens of Idaho that are, tax-paying people that have been here lawfully. So, it's a bill that I ran last year as well, and I didn't make it out of committee. I think this year, with the makeup of the Health and Welfare Committee, it has a great path forward, and I think we'll get it out of the committee and through the House.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, we've been really excited, and I know on our on our C4 and side of the things, we've been just champion good legislators, finding good candidates to run and that sort of thing, and really beefing up the amount of votes that you need for this kind of legislation. Let's move over to the Medicaid expansion aspect of it, because I think a couple of weeks ago, the chair of that committee actually introduced a bill to just repeal Medicaid expansion. You come in today with adding what you would call, I guess, guardrails to Medicaid expansion. Are you guys just trying to take a two-pronged approach here, that if that one doesn't pass, that at least we have some guardrails?
Yeah. So I think kind of the intent is actually to hear the bill that I introduced today first. And basically what this does is it puts in guardrails, like work requirement for able-bodied adults, right? We're just dealing with the expansion population. Right now, 47% of those folks are not currently working. We add for volunteer work. We add for going to school. So, if you have those built into this, the work requirement should not be too difficult to overcome. We have enrollment caps because, when expansion first passed, the promise from the actuaries was it was going to be $400 million budget. It's over 1.1 billion this year. So, the growth of this has been astronomical. And again, we're talking about able-bodied adults here. We're not talking about kids. We're not talking about pregnant women. We're talking about able-bodied adults that there's dignity in work. There's dignity in volunteering. Like, it's better for the soul. It's better for the human experience to be doing something rather than sitting at home scrolling on Instagram. We have improper payment. So currently, through our Medicaid budget, we're at like a 15% improper payment through Medicaid, and that's payments that are going where they shouldn't be going. That's, and you start talking about a $6 billion budget, that's a lot of money that adds up. So we want to get that under control. And
when you say it's going where it shouldn't be going, is this similar to like what we're seeing at the federal level, where it's like they're just approving payments out and they're not really investigating where they're going? I mean, what is this? What do you mean by like, what's an example of a payment that shouldn't have gone out?
So generally it has to do with eligibility, right? So somebody who say I'm on Medicaid, I go have a procedure done, the department pays that, but I wasn't eligible for Medicaid. I was never on Medicaid. That's an improper payment. And right now we have a 15% improper payment. And I've heard, not in our state, but around the country, 40% improper payment, right? So you start talking about a $6 billion budget, 15% is a lot of money. And so we're asking just to get that down, right? Let's have checks and balances. And I'm very confident that with the new director at the helm, we're going to be able to do that. All these things, a lot of the opposition will say that these waivers you're never going to get these granted by the federal government. I spoke to 2 representatives in the White House that said, we want to grant creative, innovative waivers because we want to figure out how to fix Medicaid. And right now it's a very broken system. So, this bill just adds checks and balances. This adds, true accountability where it has not been seen in the past. And so long as we attain all those, it actually saves the state more money than an all-out repeal. And but if we don't, then it would move to repeal Medicaid expansion. Sorry.
Yeah. So and again, this Medicaid expansion came about because of a ballot initiative a number of years ago that promised, it was sold on the belief that it would only cost a little bit or it would cost X amount, and we've seen that balloon 4x, 5x.
Yeah, it's probably closer to 3x. But again, when you're talking $400 million and it's 1.1 billion, that's a lot of money, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. All right. Well, then that got printed today, so we'll be able to dive into that bill when it jumps up online. You also had a couple things yesterday too, but I kind of like where's your heart at right now? What bills are important to you that you're running through that you think may need some more support from the folks watching?
Yeah. One of them. So I had 4 printed today. Another one of them was the 340B drug pricing. So 340B is a large federal program that's about $66 billion. And what 340B does is it takes from the manufacturer the drug cost, and then the health organization will take that money and they're supposed to pass it through to individuals. Well, we know that there's been a lot of corruption within that. And I'm not saying necessarily here in the state, but nationally, there's been a lot of corruption in that where, they're taking these discounted drugs at, say, $1,000, and then they're making the individual who qualifies for this drug pay cost for it, and they're building more health systems. So this bill would just add transparency there. It would just say, we want to know what those dollars are going towards. And it's hard to argue with transparency. Now, I know in the hearing, it's going to be very hotly contested. I know there's going to be a lot of people that say this is going to be burdensome. This is just transparency of taxpayer dollars that we want to know where the money's going.
Yeah, makes sense. And
no
argument for me.
The final one I had today was dealing with mifepristone and mifepristol. So those are abortifacients. And through a public record request at the department through the Medicaid budget, I saw in 2021 there was 0 expenditures, 22 0 expenditures. 2023 there was about 126,000, and then 2024 there was almost 700,000 used for that drug. There's very few uses for this drug other than an abortifacient. So like the one example is a very rare disease called Cushing syndrome, and either we've had a massive spike in that, or I do think that we could have some misuse of that. So what the bill did was it moved it to Schedule 4. So now it had to be reported to the Prescription Drug Monitoring Program, which will put much more oversight on that, so that we'll actually be able to see what the prescription was for and what we're trying to use that for, because it seems like there could be chemical abortions still happening.
Oh, fascinating. Okay, this is I recall hearing those drugs, but not really understood what they could be used for. And so what you're saying is that since the fall of Roe v. Wade and the institution of our new laws here in Idaho, that those drugs have been prescribed in a way to kind of mask that, and it looks like that maybe abortions may still be happening in that direction.
That would make what I would be led to believe. So that's where putting this on Schedule 4 would show we can exactly see what that was for, and if crimes are being committed, we can go after that.
Right. And these are things that are still done through prescription, right? So a doctor prescribes this, you go to a pharmacy and pick this up.
Yep. Yep, exactly right. Yeah.
And the prescription doesn't necessarily have to say what it's for.
And when it's not scheduled, there's no oversight of it, right? So moving that to a Schedule 4, now there's oversight, so we can actually look into that. And so the Department of Health and Welfare would be able to oversee that and kind of see, and the Board of Pharmacy, as well as through the Prescription Drug Monitoring Program. So
wow,
it shines a light on
fascinating.
what that's being used for.
Yeah, very good, very good. All right, well, very important stuff here, man. Man, you're doing a lot of work down there. I don't know how much help you need, but if someone wants to help you out or just follow you and support what you're doing, how can we do that? Where can we follow you?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I know I have a Twitter. I just don't know what it's called. I don't really do a whole lot of the social media stuff, just because I try to run bills. But if anyone wants to reach out, I have my email. My state email is jredman@house.idaho.gov. That's a good way to connect with me if you have issues or concerns. But yeah, any kind of support is welcomed, right? Because all these bills will be hotly contested in committee. I mean, there will be hundreds that will sign up in opposition to these. So
yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, we will definitely be paying attention to that and put out a call for support whenever you need it and whenever these bills need it. So that's great. Thanks for coming on today, Representative. It's good to see you.
Yeah, you too, man. Appreciate you.
All right. So I'll talk to you later. Bye.
See ya.
All right, folks. Let's take a quick short. Well, no, let's just bring. Is Almond around? Let's bring Almond back into the mix here, so we can close it out. Almond, I think I didn't know that. That was a little bit of a breaking news here when it comes to those two drugs. That there seems to have been a spike in the prescribing of drugs that can lead to medical abortion in the years since we've banned abortion, pretty much here in Idaho.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hadn't heard that, but that makes sense. Obviously, people are going to try and get around the law, and there's no shortage of doctors who are willing to do that to get around the law. So hopefully, this bill will pass through. I've heard a lot of pro-life organizations point to the fact that medical abortion drugs are the big loophole now that Roe v. Wade is over and Idaho has banned abortion. So maybe this will take a step in closing that loophole.
Yeah, I mean, to prescribe something that would end your pregnancy, I guess I'd have to look into the law and says if it's not supposed to be a surgical procedure or a physical procedure, but if you're being prescribed a drug, it sounds like it would be the same thing, but
yeah, it's semantics, it's words, it's you pass a law with intentions and you do your best to make sure the letter of the law matches what you want it to do, and then you find out, okay, there's a loophole. Whether it's a legal loophole, maybe you missed something in the crafting of the words of the law, or maybe it's just essentially an illegal loophole. It creates an opportunity for essentially a black market, and things like drugs by mail. That's really hard to enforce, but we can definitely take as many steps as possible toward that.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this isn't banning it. It's just saying we want to know what it's being used for. We want it on record if we're going to put this stuff out there. So very interesting. Going to stay with that. Stay with that.
I've been really impressed with Representative Redmond the last few years, especially with related to healthcare issues. He's really going after these things that need to be fixed. Whether it's those abortion drugs or Medicaid expansion that needs its guardrails, and obviously public services for illegal aliens. Both those bills, Medicaid, guardrails on Medicaid expansion and no welfare for illegals, those were both presented last year, and they were both defeated in committees because there's a lot of stakeholders who think who are now invested in this. Once you have a government program, the people who are benefit from it, who become dependent on it, they're going to fight tooth and nail to keep it. And it's going to be one of those hard things. It's like these deportations that the Trump administration's doing. They're going to show you a lot of pictures of crying people. But if we want to uphold rule of law, if we want to uphold the idea that the purpose of our government is to serve the people of our country and of our state, then we're going to have to maybe harden our hearts a little.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if you'd have to harden your heart, or you just have to have it directed to taking care of yourself. You have to take care of yourself, your home, your family, and those around you. We can't be the saviors of the entire world. There's only one man that can do that, and if you put your faith in him, you'll be saved. But outside of that, we have to take care. We have to take care of our country, have to take care of our state and our communities, and and they can show pictures of crying people all over the world, and it's very heartbreaking. It's very heartbreaking. But they somehow don't seem to want to show the pictures. Very few times do they show the pictures of folks like the families of Lake and Riley and the names that get lost in the ether 3 months later because nobody talks about them anymore. I'm in the same boat as you. I applaud Representative Redmond for just staying true to this, true to his nature, and really taking charge on these bills. It's very, very good stuff. All right, Brian, where can people follow you and take charge with your work?
GemStateChronicle.com. As always, yesterday evening, I published a long analysis of the new school choice bill, which should have a hearing tomorrow morning. So go check that out. I think there's reasons we might be able to support it if you're a conservative, but we'll see how the debate plays out. Twitter @GemState Brian, as always.
Yeah, exactly, folks. We're going to watch that tomorrow. That bill come up before committee and listen to it. It's committee. It's in the committee, right? That's where we have the public hearing. Yeah. And so we've been waiting for that. That way we can do a deep dive into this bill as well. And so we'll have Brian back on to do that with that. We're not ignoring it. We're just watching, and there's so much to keep track of. And we're just trying to do our best here. All right. Good to see you, Brian. We'll check in with you tomorrow.
All right. See you then.
Okay, very good, folks. Yeah, prayers for everybody out there. I just saw prayers for Brandon Shippey as well. I don't know if there's anything specifically, but I love to pray for folks, and Brandon Shippey certainly is a good guy, as well as Brian Allman and Jordan Redmond. So there you go. And David Worley. Last final call here, folks. You've been seeing the number down at the bottom. That's the number you can call for a voicemail. But if you're just joining us, make sure you go back to the top of the program and watch the interview with Daniel Schmidt from Liberty Counsel. He is the lawyer for Major David Worley, who was basically persecuted and shoved aside out of the Army, the Idaho Army National Guard. He is suing Governor Little right now, but Governor Little can end it. He can end this charade, reinstate Major Worley, 23 years, I think, of service this guy is given, reinstate him, and just ditch this witch hunt, this persecution against his Christian beliefs. It's absolutely atrocious. Let's get that number up there again, if we have it. I don't have it memorized, but you got to call the governor and get that up there. Do we have that the number? Yeah, that's the what do you call it? That's the name of the case, but we had the number up earlier. Did you ditch it already? Folks, it's really important. I mean, this is why we do this program, is to get these things out of here. You got to get them out. You got to get your voice out there, and we got to support each other, because no one else is going to do it. Even when you elect the right people, you gotta keep knocking on their door and say, hey, remember why we elected you? Remember? Hello. Don't get lost. Don't let the marble dust of the Statehouse screw with your brain. You need to stick with the salt of the earth. There it is, 208-334-2100. Ask Governor Little to reinstate Major David Worley, and go back to the top of the hour. We're going to clip out that segment so you can share it around and get some more eyeballs on it. All right, folks, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back here tomorrow, and it'll be a fun week for Hump Day. Thanks, folks. God bless.
This bill, I think, puts a stake in the ground that says we have a sovereign right to protect what's ours.